you have to love what you're doing, or at least love it so much more than what you were doing.
Alternatively, yeah.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be problems and issues and challenges, but if the innate quality of what you're doing really makes you sleep well at night, that you feel like I've done a good job, I'm doing something that is beneficial to my life, my family, my friends, and you wake up feeling happy, just work your ass off. It'll all fall into place. It just does. And if it doesn't, you know what? You can never look back and go, well, I didn't give it a shot. You know?
For sure. All right, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Create Great Real Estate. We have a special guest today, Doug Christensen, real estate agent in Southern California. I've known him through his daughter playing basketball at a facility that I've had with a partner of mine, and he crushes it in the local market as it pertains to real estate. You're going to get to learn a lot from him, and we're all going to learn a ton. So welcome in.
Thanks for
being here.
Appreciate it.
So to get started, we always like to bring some credibility to the people we bring on, and just what you've done and where you've been. So give us a little brief. You've spent 5 years at Engel & Volkers, which is a local real estate branch that way?
Yeah, it's actually international, but it's been in the United States since 2008. So sometimes when I bring up Engel & Volkers, who? But you go anywhere internationally, they know. It's very high
crop
end. Absolutely. So yeah, I've been in it for, I've actually been in the South Bay marketplace for roughly 5 years. I was the top solo agent in 2022. I'll be finishing off this year in the top 5, not only for sales, but volume as well. So I consider myself pretty lucky. You know, I try to create, through my hard work. It's got to have some luck in there.
For sure. That's a big time.
It also goes the other way too sometimes.
100%. So 20 years, you were doing sales?
Yeah, started out, my first job was with Michelin Tire Company.
Okay.
That lasted all of 6 weeks. I actually got fired. It was quite frankly, right out of college.
What happened?
Actually, when I got the job, because I went to University of Texas, I told them, I'm going to move back to LA. And they said, oh yeah, we got an opening in LA. Okay. I'm like, great. 2 weeks into the job, they put us into Greenville, South Carolina. That's where the corporate headquarters were. Mm-hmm. So 2 weeks into the job, at the airport to fly home, and I'm talking with some other Michelin employees, and they're like, oh yeah, where are you going to work? And I'm like, oh, LA. They're like, there's no job opening in LA. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, yeah, this person's apparently left. And I'm like, no, they decided to stick around. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't even thinking twice about it. I get back from LA. So all of a sudden things got really tense and hard because I'm in the probationary period. Okay. And I'm just a kid. I have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, this is screwed. Right. I'm like, what's going on? Why am I getting singled out of this class of like 15 people? Yeah. That's like bizarre. And then I ended up, they said, oh, it's not going to work out, whatever. And they never came to me and said, look, you know what, the person in LA. But it actually kind of gave me a taste of
what LA life's like.
Working for a corporation and, fast forward to getting into real estate, I mainly sold in the outsourcing industry where I'd sell kind of a labor and technology solution, and I like that, but I also started up another business on the side where I did Segway Tour Company down in South Redondo, and I really enjoyed working for myself, and started realizing, I'm like, look, you know what? I'm better working for me than working for someone else. As much as I worked incredibly hard and did all the right things, when you work for a corporation, and I've realized this long ago, it's not about the employees. It never has been. It's about the shareholders and shareholder wealth. And if things aren't working out in the way that's when we saw that big crash in 2007.
Yeah.
You know, people with pensions that have been there for 29 years,
Yeah.
right before they hit their 30th, gone.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like the culture of it just kind of got me more realizing that I might have a better opportunity to do something I really enjoy, which is kind of like what we were talking about prior to the podcast starting up, of real estate. And luckily my wife has a solid job with great healthcare benefits, which was really kind of the key with 2 kids and ourselves. And I was able to, with really her support, be able to get into real estate, because it is a super tough business with a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to make it. Your first year, it's like any business. If you're not getting it done in your first year, it's hard to survive.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you you hit on a topic that I think in American culture especially is really challenging. There's a lot of people who work for corporation or, small business, big business, whatever the case, and then people who want to work for themselves. What would you say is the most important trait for somebody who does want to work for themselves to be able to actually make it, and make it being be able to support their life?
I would say work incredibly hard. Be passionate. Obviously, the first thing you have to be is passionate about what you're doing, because if you're not passionate about it, it's going to be very hard to work hard, and also to enjoy doing what you're doing. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to love what you're doing, or at least love it so much more than what you were doing.
Alternatively, yeah.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be problems and issues and challenges, but if the innate quality of what you're doing really makes you sleep well at night, that you feel like I've done a good job, I'm doing something that is beneficial to my life, my family, my friends, and you wake up feeling happy, just work your ass off. It'll all fall into place. It just does. And if it doesn't, you know what? You can never look back and go, well, I didn't give it a shot.
For sure. That's dope. I think adults don't hear that enough. We say that a lot to kids, you gotta work hard, you gotta put in time, X, Y, and Z, but now we're in a space where, because of the advent of social media and how fast things are moving, there's always access to so much stuff, right? Like people can just, I can do this, I can make this Costco hack, I can get this Chick-fil-A hack,
right.
I can get this workout real quick, whatever the case, and being able to make big life decisions, that's something that gets hard for people if they don't have the foundation of hard work, or like you said, just having a passion about what they're doing. So many people doing something they don't actually like doing.
Absolutely. And part of not liking what you're doing also gets you to the point of what you might like doing.
Right.
Working hard at something is always of value. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's being a landscaper, a custodian, an IT person, whatever. You start getting an idea of okay, I like this portion of the job, but I'm not crazy about this. And it kind of gets you into those areas. And, you bring up, social media, which obviously huge for Gen Z and millennial. I'll tell you, I have a deep appreciation for millennials in regards to, it's not even about how hard they work. It's actually, they're just a smarter generation. And part of my success has been partnering with millennials as buyers.
Right.
They're about pushing it to the kind of the envelope. For the most part, there's areas that are in the South Bay that if you grew up around here or what have you, you might go, oh, I can't live over there. And the reality is you just haven't been out of your bubble.
Right.
You haven't seen oh, wow, this is really grown over here. And, a lot of the millennial buyers that I have, they're not necessarily from here.
Right.
So when they see it in a completely different lens. That's where, what's the old saying about, the tide rises all boats or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we all know what we're talking about. But it's working with millennials, they are just boom. They'll just, hey, I want to go check something out. I love that. I love that energy. And they'll also listen to you.
Yeah.
They do appreciate the experience, and they also like to be complimented.
Right.
And I think that's fair. Hey, look, you just found something. That's awesome. And it's genuine and it's heartfelt. And I think my clients know that, even though we're probably anywhere from 15 to 20 years difference in age, I think they realize like, oh, this is like Uncle Doug. He gets it.
He's the wise.
Yeah, he's yeah, but he's good. He's fun. We have a good time. We laugh. But yeah. So, anyways, in a long-winded fashion, I think whatever you end up wanting to do, just if you work really hard at it, there's a good chance you're going to succeed. Sure.
Yeah, with real estate today, I mean, you look at what traits are necessary to be successful. So, you talked about having an age gap with a lot of people who are on the come up buying right now, because I imagine in real estate you have found in your time it's not necessarily always this certain 10-year gap of people who buy, but the people who are generally buying are people who are either new home buyers, people who are already in the real estate market looking to either flip a property to get into their next property or do some type of exchange. And have you had any kind of a system that you utilize when it comes to trying to gain more leverage in the market? So trying to be able to get people in a market like today, that's a little bit more challenging. Is there any kind of system you use, or do you go, it's person by person?
It really is person by person. I think part of this, one thing that I do on the daily is I have conference calls with the top agents in my firm. And what's amazing is I'm probably the middle of the road age in our firm. People who've been in the business for 15, 20, 30 years. What's amazing about it is they still have questions about things that I actually answer, and the same vice versa, because we pull from different things. And I try to keep up to date topically on what's happening in real estate in regards to kind of the bigger picture. And I think part of that is, we're in a situation now with buyers who affordability is a huge issue. But I would also go back to the fact that who's most affected. Again, we're kind of going to that Gen Z, millennial. They're the most affected by it. And as much as I just went on about how awesome millennials are and Gen Zs and how they bring to it, there's also on theirs. And again, we're all stereotyping, generalize. Everyone's different. One thing I've noticed in this market is a lack of compromise. You know what? I know you. Look, I'm not going to say everybody wants it all. We all want it all, but there's never an all. Even for somebody who's making, has an $8 million, home, there's always something that they're not getting out of it. I go back and how I grew up, we shared a bathroom with 4 people, okay? I didn't think twice about it. Now everybody, I got to have 2 bathrooms. It's like, well, okay, you're kind of getting shut out of the market. You're thinking, I got to be here. And there's great reasons. School system, I don't know, family, whatever. But there's also a point you go, really? We're talking about a 5-minute drive east. What major lifestyle change is that really going to do for you? The value is going to matter. It's not going to drop off. School system, as long as it's still the same school system or a good school system, if that's what you're looking for with your kids, and quite frankly, you should be looking for that period on the most part because it brings value up in your own home. But it's the idea of I got to be here and I got to have this, and it's like, well, if you're renting right now, you're flushing your money down the toilet. I'm not even saying, buy a house or a condo or a townhome by all means. If you think you're going to be in an area for the next 10 years, you need to go buy something. And you need to buy something that you can afford.
You're not going to be scraping together every month.
Absolutely. Right. But part of that is, hey, what do you want? Let's see what you're pre-approved for. Assuming you're not doing it all cash, but most people are trying to finance. And then you say, okay, what's the monthly nut that you can afford? Let's start looking in those places. Let's look. Hey, I know you didn't want to be in a condo, but maybe that's the best you can afford right now. And quite frankly, it's better than renting. You're building your own wealth.
For sure.
And I think there's a frustration over, damn it, I wish I could have got it at 3% versus, right now I think we're at 7.5. It was at 8. And it's significant. But guess what? We ain't going back to 3%. We'll be lucky to be at 5.5%, 5% maybe in 2 years. And even when we were at 5.5, people, oh my God!
It's whatever the standard is now. So there's people, who are obviously freaking because there's so many people right now who have houses at 2.5%, 3% who are holding.
Absolutely.
I'm not getting out of my 2.5 or 3 to go into a 7.5.
And generally they should.
Yeah, but the people who don't have anything yet, a lot of times they aren't seeing the value in having something. It allows you to start building equity.
Yep.
And it just gets you more education in the market. So, like you were saying, I've found, in my time in real estate, as I look around, there's a lot of people who do have their specificity, which you can appreciate.
Yeah,
if somebody's going to buy something that costs more than $50,000,
right.
Get what you want. But if you want to live in an area, having the specificity of no, it's got to have like 3 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms as opposed to like a 2-bath, 3-bed, and there's something available right now for you in your area that you like,
right,
but you don't love. Unless you're a person who's already got money in the bank or you can buy things all cash, it's pretty tough to get like exactly what you want.
Right, and you can work through it, and trust me, I mean, there's things that, again, I look at it more generational. I came up more from like work hard. We didn't have the same technology. I hate the whole like we're tougher and whatever. We're just different.
Yeah, so it's your circumstance.
It's your circumstance, and I think it's a mindset. I'm not saying get a place that's a piece of crap. Right. What I'm saying is get a place that you think maybe you can do things over time. Is it a safe, secure area? That's important. Does it have good schools? That's important. Are you really going to pass on a place that just has 1 bathroom? Guess what? You could end up extending your home later and adding a bathroom.
Right.
But these are the things that hold people back, and it's unfortunate, but right now it's easier because you go, oh well, interest rates are too high. But look, the reality is the interest rates are going to be what they are. It doesn't matter what you can afford, and you find a place. You know what? Your interest rate probably is going to go down at some point, and you can refinance.
It's going to go down, but the other piece I find that people aren't really seeing is the value of the property is going up. So like the interest rate is temporary. The value of the property is just going to keep going up and up and up. So especially in like Southern California, everything gets impacted. More and more people move here, things get tighter.
Yep.
So you find a spot in a school district you're like, oh, I really like that place, but like interest rates are high right now, so we're going to wait. And then you look up at a place that costs $600,000 right now. If you look up in a year and a half, it's gonna be $750,000.
It's crazy.
You're gonna be like, okay.
Yeah. What people are thinking, well, the market's got to crash at some point. Look, I'm a realist. I am not somebody that's a Pollyanna and say, because I remember in 2007 when I had my first home. I bought it actually in 2002, and next door, same house, sold 18 months later for like $200,000 more, and I'm like, well, this is not going to be sustainable. I'm like, and my house, as much as we had this great place in Hermosa, ocean view, but it was the size of a cracker box. Right. And I had a kid, Grace, and we were probably going to have another kid. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm having 2 kids in this place. I'm like, I'm getting out now. Right. And I'm going to go buy in Redondo, a bigger place, whatever. But it starts with the first one. Right. I was able to leverage that. Mm-hmm. And I think, as far as just, where people are at right now as far as affordability, it'll come around. It's just a matter of, you just got to wait a little bit. And the inventory's not there. Right. So that's why when you talk about assets appreciating, it's because they're not building more here. Right. They're trying to. I mean, there's been legislation that's been approved in every city to build out more units. Mm-hmm. But that's all great and good. Now it's about, first of all, we got to find areas that we can do that. Right. And it's impacting cities in ways that, from a state standpoint, they don't really think about the local aspects. Right. But at the same point, locally, you have a lot of people who call it NIMBYs, not in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Once they got their place, we can't have any more building, this, exactly. And it's snapping back the other way, which is not the way, look, you can see it in politics. You get moved so far to the right or you move so far to the left, it's going to snap back the other way. And if you keep it moderate, everybody doesn't get everything they want, but they're not being in these situations where it's just getting jammed down your throat. Right. And that's where I think it, creates a lot of tension, and for builders. But there's things that are happening right now, just in the state of California. Just recently, we talk about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, mother-in-law quarters. That last couple of years has been a big push towards that to increase the units for people to rent and so on and so forth. They actually just created another piece of legislation where you can actually sell your ADU on its own as a parcel.
Really?
So yeah,
Because
so
that wasn't a thing like 20 years ago.
Oh, God.
People in like Manhattan or Hermosa, if you have like a little space in the back, you can't have it be separate.
or you'd have to go through planning committee and whatever, and it would just be an incredible hassle. Totally discretionary in regards to, oh well, we'll let you have it or not or what have you.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, well, the state of California has basically said, look, if you have these type of setbacks and so on and so forth, this is the type of ADU you can have. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
But now they've gone a step further. Again, this is literally in the last 2 weeks where basically they've said, look, now you have an ADU. You have this whole unit crunch. Like, where are you going to put all? You can actually split up your land and sell this ADU as a condo, basically, where you have a homeowners association, so on and so forth. And now you've just doubled up the size. Now, the caveat is a city at this point can adopt that.
Okay.
So what I see actually happening, you have, Hermosa is a great example. There's no space in Hermosa.
Right.
Okay? Well, now you actually have an opportunity to say, okay, look, you build an ADU here, and if you want to double it, then you can parcel off that, give the owners of that land that opportunity. You have the ability to do that. So we don't want to hear you say, we can't, find enough land. Well, wait a second, there's a legislation now that you can put in and adopt it as a city. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting what the state of California is doing. Granted, so it's not all bad, but it's not all good.
Right.
But that's something that just came out a couple weeks ago. And that's also part of what I try to do. I have a farm. It's basically 2,000 single family residence, condos, townhomes that I pass out my flyers every other month to, like a certain site. That's the kind of stuff that when I run into people, I talk to them about. Okay. Try to educate them on, hey, here are some opportunities here. Or, like just being up to date. It adds a lot of credibility when the time that they either want to buy or they want to sell, they at least go, that guy actually seems like he knows what he's talking about. And, I know a lot of things have been automated and it's like, oh, we're worried about like everything going to AI. Yeah. AI is probably it's going to help, but it's not going to replace.
Right.
And, doing business with someone, a real estate agent, it's a huge amount of trust. And when you don't know somebody from Adam, and then you get to meet them and then you start having conversations about what's happening in the world of real estate. The one thing that AI doesn't do is your gut feeling. Right. Hey, you know what? This person actually seems okay. I can relate to that. And that's why real estate agents, they're going to survive. Right. And, it's just a matter of, again, going out, even just showing you're working hard. They're in the back of their mind, they're going to go, well, that guy's doing this, which is, doing a farm and dropping off his flyers and this, that, and the other. That guy's probably going to work hard for me. Yeah. So, part of this is, part of that success is also being seen.
Yes. Yeah, as a real estate agent, you for sure have to be visual. I mean, some people that's like getting their stuff on buses and park benches.
Totally.
Some people that's like being in a local magazine, but there's nothing like seeing a person in your area, in your neighborhood, getting the word of mouth. Like the best business is now and probably will always be like a good solid word of mouth. Somebody already has a relationship going, hey, I vouch for this person.
Yeah.
And then bringing them in that way. So yeah, having the experience like you have is like a really big deal. But I mean, you touched on it with now social media, AI, all these different things that people are nervous about, taking their job. The thing that'll always make you have a job is if you have skills, if you have experience, and more than anything is if you have contacts.
Yeah.
Like if you have contacts, you can always spread yourself out. You can always pivot, transition, because real estate will probably change realistically. Like we might go to a fashion where real estate's no longer done through like sheets of paper. It might be, okay, online I'm just going to send you like this form, you click this button and it's a transfer of paper, like literally that quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happening where there's not all this paperwork. Like right now when you go through an escrow, it's like document.
Ad
Like,
nauseum, and it's
yeah.
legalese, and like, oh my God, how did I can't read all this.
In the future, I won't be surprised if it's literally like a video going, I certify that such and such can have this, and it's like, okay, I accept, and that's it.
Well, I think you all have. I think that future is closer than what people think. I mean, if you think about what crypto is,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying like crypto from a monetary. Like, look, I have my own doubts about regulating it, and you know, I know some people have done very well with it and what have you, and I'm a little bit more conservative. But the other part about it is blockchain.
Yeah.
You know, you have blockchain, it's all transparent. So that, you know, in of itself can be put into any type of business.
Right.
So things are changing. It's just a matter of, it's not going to be overnight, but it will evolve.
You want to be educated.
Yeah,
That's
you want to be
happening.
educated.
That's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to know everything. You certainly got to know your market. You got to know your comps. You know, there are some basic things that you can get through and what have you. It's a matter of like, all right, what's going to be the difference of me maybe spending $50,000 more or losing $50,000? It's your agent. What are they going to talk to you about? I mean, there's so many. Look, I have multiple listings going on right now, and in this market, you know, and probably in any, but I see a lot of, and I don't want to disparage other entities that come in, but if you like from a listing standpoint to protect the sellers, there are certain things within the what we call the RPA, which is your purchase contract, that if you're not careful on what you're signing off on, you can put your sellers in a very bad position where they're tied up on the market on something that they don't really want to do, because you could have buyer agents, wholesalers, other buyers trying to basically knock money off significantly, even though you've had the conversation of, you know, hey, this is how the house is, and here are the reports, and so on, and they tie up your escrow,
Right.
and that costs you money.
For sure.
Because it's sitting on days on market,
Yeah.
and if you're not smart about how you modify the RPA in your counters, in regards to how it gets assigned or not assigned, which I would always say do not assign it, because it means you're going to be dealing potentially with somebody else than what you originally entered into a deal. It could cause a lot of headaches, and quite frankly, it could end up costing you a lot of money.
For sure.
So you got to be careful with that, and again, that's all part of the education process that really goes on a consistent basis through a deal. And something that I personally, again, even if I know my clients, like, it might be a little bit over their head, I want to explain
Yeah,
it.
take the time to get the education.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first learned that this situation can happen where if you get into an escrow, okay, you got to put 3% down, so you're going to have a 20%. You put 3% down, boom, that's out of the bank. And you get X amount of days through it, so you pass contingencies, and 10 days later, it's like that person can keep your money if because people are like, oh no, I gotta get through escrow or else I get my money back.
Yeah.
But after that 10-day period, if you sign off on that first contingency, that 3% can be gone. So you have situations like a $600,000 house, people aren't computing 3%. Okay, 6,000 times 3, 18 G's after 10 days can just be gone, and seller's discretion to say oh no, I'm not gonna give you that back type of situation. But little things like that for people who want to buy houses, people who are selling houses, that's what I find most people don't really realize about real estate when they're getting ready to get into it. And if you don't have an agent who will explain it,
Right.
Because a lot of agents are just out here shifting papers over, oh, I want to get to the escrow, so sign this.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not gonna fight for you for repairs or credits or anything like that. Or, quite frankly, you didn't educate the seller to know that, hey, here's where your leverage is, Mr. Seller.
Right.
We get to choose who we want, the terms that's best for you.
Exactly.
But as soon as we accept, guess what happens?
Flips.
The buyer has
Flips,
the leverage. All we can say is no.
Yeah.
So don't think, once, if you have a change in your mind, you're not in power anymore.
Right.
You can always say no, but the buyer now can always say yes.
Yeah.
And as long as they keep saying yes, they're going to end up with the house.
Right.
And you would think that's kind of basic, but believe it or not, people think, I'm not selling it. It's like,
you don't have a choice. Yeah.
You don't have a choice, or you're getting in for some big time legal battle that's going to cost you more. So again, part of that is that education process of, hey, are you sure this is what? Because guess what? We have leverage now, but as soon as we accept this, we are not going to have leverage. The leverage of yes. So it's a constant education for sure.
All right, so today's market, for most people who are in today's market, it feels like these prices are insane, right? If we went to where credit card rates are, right? If we get to 18%, 19%, people say, I want 7.5 right back. Right now, there we are, stuff being where it is. Why are prices not going down? Explain that to somebody who has no idea why interest rates even shift.
Yeah, well, normally in a normal balanced market, interest rates go up, prices go down. We are not in a balanced market because we do not have the inventory. Right. So when you have more buyer demand than what the sellers have out there, prices will continue to, and maybe it's not going to go at 15, 20% like it was.
Steady or appreciate.
Right, it's going, like for this year, and this is from a national standpoint, it's going up about 4%, which is pretty
right.
Good appreciation. Especially if you're talking about, you have $1 million home, which is most of the homes around here. Yeah, that's $40,000. Who's going to complain about
an extra $40,000
right?
For like doing nothing,
but on paper and what have you. But yeah, that's a big thing. Is that the idea that look, you know what, you're not thinking about you're thinking about the cost of what your mortgage is, which is what you should be thinking about. But by staying out, your mortgage is going up, and it's also, you may be priced out, because you can't afford. So the asset's going up, and again, it's really about choices. It's about jumping in, and sometimes it's like, look, I kind of get it when people continue to rent because their lifestyle is more important than just actually creating equity. But if you think about the scary thing, you can say, I can live here all I want. The rent's super low, and let's just say the seller's never going to sell the place, whatever, until they die, and then their heirs are going to end up selling the place because there's things like Prop 19 that make heirs more likely to sell the property than to continue to rent it or what have you. But let's just say you're in this great situation, you're below rent, what have you. Well, how long are you going to be in that situation? What happens when you become 60, 70 years old? And your biggest value you have typically is your home. Yeah. You can pull. You're not going to have that. It's hard to find $100,000, $200,000, even if I'll just save. I ask my prospects who are buyers, I say, okay, well, you're going to save. How much are you saving now? Right. How much are you expecting a big increase in your salary? Big bonus. I'm like, and I say that with peace and love. Like, I don't know, they might have a big thing coming up. But once you start talking through and you go, look, realistically, and by the way, I'm just an agent, okay? I'm not a mortgage lender. Talk to the lender. Right. Say, here's what I think is going to happen. What does that do for me? And then they're going to kind of have their comeuppance of, God, it really doesn't matter if I'm saving an extra 40 grand based on what my mortgage is going to be. It doesn't matter. I need to jump in now while the interest rates are at this, and I'm not. And also, you're not factoring the other side of where the asset is increasing in value,
especially around here. Like it's only going one way. Anybody by the beach, it's only going one direction from here on out. Like, that's the situation. And so I saw a situation in Manhattan not too long ago. This was about 3-4 weeks ago, where there's an older couple. I think the wife has a job at like a grocery store or something like that, but was not the breadwinner. The husband was the breadwinner, and he had a job working for like Disney. It was like a writer, right? And so writer strike happens. He's like 55, 60 years old, in that range, and they have this space in Manhattan that they rent, and it's been fine for years and years and years. We love the lifestyle. We don't want to move away from here. And they have a real estate agent who's like a friend of theirs and a friend of mine. So, and they're like, I'm not going to like push them towards anything or whatever the case. But the time happens where there's the writer strike, he can't work. Right. He's at an age where it's tough to pivot to another job. Yeah. And even if he did pivot to another job, it's not going to pay what living in Manhattan Beach, near the Strand is necessary. Right. And so their whole lifestyle is like, unless something unexpected happens, their whole lifestyle is about to change because 30 years ago, they didn't make the decision when they had the opportunity to say,
Right.
we're going to buy something maybe a little smaller off the Strand,
Right.
and then build that in and roll that into something eventually on the Strand. They just said, we'll rent for the rest of the time. But now they're like locked into this lifestyle. They love this lifestyle,
Right.
And now it has to shift.
Yeah,
because they didn't buy something.
And you hit the nail on the head on some people who rent forever.
Yeah.
It's a matter, and I would probably say it's just their own ego. What do my friends think if I move to this city from here? It's like, who cares what your friends think?
Yeah.
And if that's how they think, maybe you got to re-examine who your friends are. But look, everybody's different, and I don't have any problem with anybody who rents. My whole philosophy, though, is, look, do it with purpose.
Yeah.
Don't do it if it's just a lifestyle, you're going to pay for it at some point.
Right.
There's going to become that day. But yeah, so it's it's interesting times for sure in regards to trying to buy a home, but also be smart about it.
Yeah.
But I always encourage people look, when we just talked about asset value going up, in general over a 10-year period, but there will be dips.
Yeah.
Look, I can see it just in here's a very interesting scenario that's kind of taking place right now, and I have my own theory about it, but homes that are fixers, money is very expensive right now.
Yes.
So let's call it 7.5%. Okay, so say you have a fixer in Manhattan Beach, and it's $2 million, okay? And let's just say you're gonna put 20% down, all right? So that's $400,000. Now you gotta finance 1.6 million.
Yeah.
That 1.6 million, let's make it 8%, just make it even. That's gonna be somewhere around $14,000 to $16,000 a month to finance a fixer, okay? Now you gotta pull more money out to go, okay, if I'm gonna just redo the house and not add on, I'm probably looking at about $150 to $200 per square foot. Say it's a 1,500 square foot home. That would make it close to $300,000. So now you got to pull another $300,000 out, and not only just have the intestinal fortitude to actually go through a remodel, which is very painful.
It's tough.
Oh, it's very tough. Your lifestyle completely changed. But the value is going to be greater. However, when money is that costly, what I'm seeing now is the fixers are sitting, or sitting longer.
Right.
Now, for a cash person, different.
Yeah.
But for someone trying to finance, what they're thinking is, well, maybe instead of me going after that $2 million home, if I can, maybe I'll do that 2.5 or 2.8 million, and it's already remodeled, it's turnkey, these flippers, which, by the way, some flippers are better than others.
Yeah.
But it's all ready to go. I don't have to do anything. Well, guess what? Now I'm paying it, 20% on 2.8. That's, close to $600,000, and I'm financing another 2.2 million. So that's you're 16. You're probably about $19,000. Guess what happens when the market does turn? You better both be working.
That goes down, yeah.
Well, and also they're paying for the construction beforehand.
Right.
But if the economy goes south, jobs, but now those are the first ones who are going to actually have some real problems,
Right.
Because they're going to have to put it back out on the market. I'm not saying, oh, here comes the wave of foreclosures.
Right.
That's not going to happen for the most part, because again, what you brought up earlier, a lot of homeowners have 2, 3, 4% interest rates. They're not going down first. They're going to have a ton of value in their home, and if they do lose their jobs and they got to make his life, it's just going to go back out to the market at market price, and they're still going to make money. It's not going to be throw the keys into the living room, I'm walking away, like it was in 2007, 2008. So that's part of the whole value of why are interest rates still way up, but the properties are still going up? It's the lack of inventory. It's the people who have these homes at 2-3%.
And
they
they're
don't
just holding,
They're just holding, and maybe they can have one job that can support it,
Right.
because it's so low that they're able to do that. So that's it's kind of, it's complicated, but it's not really that complicated.
It can be made simple,
for
sure.
Right, especially if you own a home. Look, if you have a 3% interest rate and it's on $1 million, yeah, you're probably not going to sell. But if you have a 3% interest rate and you have a $200,000 mortgage or $300,000 or $400,000, those people are more likely when it drops to 5.5% to sell, because think about it, it's great to have a 3%, but 3% on 200,000, 300,000, that's not a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're able to, but you probably have a ton of equity in the home, leverage that up to the next home, and if you're around 5, you're probably going to look at based on how your lifestyle is. You go, you know what, I can manage that night.
Right.
That's when you'll start seeing the thaw, so to speak, of like homes starting to loosen up a little.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I'm curious, in your opinion, you've been somebody who's operated around the South Bay for a while. Like, we talk about these really high-end homes, Manhattan Beach, or most of the beach, you're not getting anything under $1 million. And now with the way things crank, it's like you're lucky if you can get under $2 million in a lot of those places.
Yeah.
But then as we come away from the ocean, we go more inner city, which is like the larger population. Larger population is not able to afford Manhattan Beach or most of the beach for the most part. So how do you communicate to clients? Because you deal with both. You deal with people who are more inner city, you deal with people who are close to the ocean, and everywhere in between. What are the different types of conversations that you have to deal with? For the people who are listening to this, if they say, and it's nice that you guys sit here and talk about a $2 million house, but that's not me.
Right.
So to start to be able to touch those people more, what are the different conversations that a person who's looking at something in that $300,000, $400,000, even $200,000 range, what do they need to know versus the person who might even be an all-cash buyer for something that's $2 million?
Sure. I mean, again, I can speak to around, and the South Bay, a lot of people think it's Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo.
Right.
South Bay is actually made of about 18 cities.
Right.
Includes El Segundo, RPV, San Pedro, Torrance, all the way out to Wilmington.
Right.
People don't think, I'm in the South Bay, I'm in Wilmington. What? No one think. But that's actually how it's actually divided up. So when we talk about homes here, you're not going to find a home at $300,000.
Right.
You're going to find homes starting somewhere, maybe, and we're talking homes as condos, maybe in that 4.5, like 450,000, but most likely somewhere bumping between 500 to 700 when you're talking about your starter home.
Right.
And again, it kind of goes back to the whole idea of, okay, first of all, where do you want to move? What about the safety of it? You don't want to move in a neighborhood that does not feel safe.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Whenever I have new prospects who are open to being a part of, whether it's Torrance or Lomita or San Pedro or wherever, I say, first of all, let's look at the house. If you like it, off of that. Let's look at the neighborhood. If you like the neighborhood, great. If you don't like the neighborhood, we don't need to go into the house. Okay? Once the neighborhood's cooked up, boom, go from there. Go into the house. Then it's just a matter of like, okay, how do you like the floor plan? Does it flow for you? Can you see it? Can you see yourself living there? Right. It really just becomes more of like,
build it.
Right.
Build the vision.
Yeah, build your vision of what you like, because that's how I learn. Like, it's not about me telling you, well, this is what
good for you and then not good for you.
Right. I need to learn the more, and where I think I get a lot of synergies with my clients and how I move very quickly into getting them into homes is I'm listening to what they like, and then trying to figure out, okay, boom, the next place. Let's talk about things we don't like. I don't want to talk about this house that you don't like about this, that, and the other. And if you changed it, I'm like, we're not changing it. We're moving to the next house. But at least I know you don't like this portion of the house. So
I see something like that.
Boom, it's done. We're gonna go on to the next one. But when you do find it, like this is where you start learning. I'm learning what you're learning. And by the way, I'm gonna educate you on the whole way through too. I want you to be smart about real estate. It doesn't mean you have to be like go out and I can go sell real estate.
Right.
But you start understanding the process, and we start learning from potentially our mistakes, or quite frankly, avoiding those mistakes. I'm excellent on the buy side because I really parcel it down to, okay, look, here's what you can afford, here's what we can offer. Listing agents, they want to deal with people who are sharp.
Yep, they know their stuff. Yeah,
they know their stuff, because what the listing agent's thinking, and this is what I think as a listing agent is, okay, this guy or gal has got their stuff together. It's going to make escrow a lot easier. They're upfront and transparent. Playing the poker game when you're trying to get in isn't going to work for you. Yeah. No, because they're going to think, you're shady.
Yeah, and people go to their clients, I've experienced this, so people go to their clients and they say like, this is a good offer, but there's something about it, that, so a lot of times you'll find people will go with like a lower offer that's cleaner. And that's a word you hear in real estate a lot. Like, this offer is more clean. It's less, but it's cleaner.
And the thing is, look, I'm always about getting the best terms and the best price. But sometimes it's a matter of saying, okay, look, you always can just say, no, I don't like any of them, and we just move on to the next one. But it's more about, okay, here are the terms. These are very good terms. This is the price. It may be, the same, 5, 10,000, but it's educating them on, here's some of the things that can go wrong. Because sometimes I get like people come in and, again, totally valid. What does it matter if it's all cash versus I got a 20% down? Well, and it's the same amount. Right. Well, the all cash buyer is, well, I already I don't have to deal with an appraisal, and I don't have to deal with the loan contingency already, so that's 2 down. Plus, I don't have to deal with a financial institution. Right. I'm just dealing with this cash. That's one of the securities. So the more you knock out of your contingencies, and not that, hey, if you have a 20% down, doesn't mean you couldn't knock out the loan contingency or the appraisal or the physical inspection, whatever it happens to be. Right. But ultimately, you want to put together as clean as can be, and also you want to be very clear about what your clients can do in the sense of, hey, here's our offer. Can we do certain things to
make it work better?
Right. What would your sellers like as far as terms? Okay, because if it's mutually agreeable, we'll put it in. Right. Like, you're already starting to partner. That listing agent's starting to listen. I go, okay, this person seems reasonable. Yeah. I don't want headaches. Nobody wants headaches. But I also am again, this is me being transparent. I put it on the table and say, look, you know what? We need to have a physical inspection. We're going to do reports. I'm not going to come in here and say, we need a credit of $2,000 because the carpet's orange. Right. I'm like, anything that we see, I go, but if there's something that the seller didn't know about, the buyer didn't know about, I am going to ask you for credits.
For sure.
And just be completely reasonable and upfront. I, again, think listing agents appreciate that. I appreciate it. I appreciate when a lender calls me. I make my lenders call the agent to tell them how financially viable my client is. You know how many calls I get on most deals? Zip. Yeah. And I'm usually reaching out to them. Right. And again, as a listing agent, these are some of the things that people try to flow by. I literally just got out. Was in an escrow that I talked to the agent, the lender, and they had a pre-approval. And I said, okay, well, you don't have a problem with us cross-qualifying? No, not at all. I'm like, well, have they given you this, and this? So, because the pre-approval is only as good as what it's written on paper. Literally. And he's like, well, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I had my lender, who I do quite a bit of business with, call them. They didn't have any of it. Yeah. And part of that is they're hoping the listing agent doesn't do their due diligence.
For sure.
Because you know why? It's harder to do it. And quite frankly, most people maybe don't feel confident about the questions they're going to ask. But these are the little things that, from a perspective of being educated, whether you're a seller or a buyer, that gives you more confidence that, hey, this person's got my back. Yeah. They're thinking about more than just the transaction, getting it through, and being as clean as possible. That lets them move on. I want them to think about me first. Yeah. And I think you genuinely get that when and there's a lot of good agents, and I deal with them quite a bit. But you, as a buyer or a seller, you have to also trust your gut. Yeah. If you make good decisions most of the time, you're probably making a good decision with your agent. Right. As long as you're asking the right questions, and if like I try to do, I try to bring up the things that maybe they're not thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that just hits me so hard with this place that I was researching basically at the time. And so the situation was really good looking condo, like 2-story situation. You're able to see the ocean from it and all this stuff. But there was like this slope down to the driveway, and you see like almost this man-made fictional wall, kind of blocking the grass and the mud from the house itself. Yeah. And you're like looking at that wall, you're like, that wall looks so flimsy, It's like everything else is great. This wall, it just sticks out to you. And so California doesn't rain a whole lot.
No.
But this past year, you know,
Oh,
there was
yeah.
that time, it was like boom,
Yeah.
pouring. And so all of a sudden this like leak happens into the house that you can see it on the wall when you come in. You see it, and it wasn't there before they
Oh, no.
started the escrow or
No.
the listing. And so you can like see it, like what's that, you know, kind of situation. So, oh, got to check it out. They come in, like they open up the wall, and it's like, oh, this is a situation where there's gonna be mold, there's gonna be this, da, 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 da. And so like nobody knew that this was the case because for years it's fine.
Right.
You have this one hard rain that comes, so
Right.
like, can't have flood insurance on that because of X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So it has to be a situation that's taken care of like within the escrow. Like, what do you want to do?
Right.
Okay. Person who's asking for it is like, I want a $15,000 credit because we called this company and they said
Right.
it costs $15,000 to come build like a legit wall.
Right.
And the seller is like, oh no, you know, that wall's been fine for years. That place sat on the market for 7 months. Like, and meanwhile, they had already committed to another house, so the
Right.
buyers, so they're just paying them that 7 months, like,
Yeah.
because like they wouldn't compromise. So, like
Right.
we talked about, on $15,000, they wouldn't compromise on like, yes, I can see it's an issue.
Right.
Here's $15,000 to make that make sense.
Right.
Now they're paying a nut that's probably $6,000 a month over 6 months.
Yeah, and again, who's to say what they ended up selling the place for?
Right.
It could have lost value on that standpoint. There's certain, you know, battles, you know, but it's the war. I have to remind my buyers a lot that you got accepted on this offer.
Right.
You've kind of
You've
won the war.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some battles we can certainly fight, but don't cut your nose off to spite your face.
Right.
I have told clients we got to pull. I'll say, look, I had this one couple. There was this place in Lomita, super cute house, but it was literally the foundation was on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, you know, maybe we can do this and that and the other. And they were first-time home buyers, and I said, this is a major red flag. This is a hazard.
Right.
If something happened, earthquake, you know, heavy wind, something crazy, and that house goes down, you're screwed.
Right.
I'm like, now granted, you could fortify this, but it's probably going to cost you around $100,000.
Right.
I'm like, this is your first home.
Yeah.
You don't need this. We'll find another one. Now, granted, I could just say nothing and just be like, well, yeah, you know, there's things you can do and move on, and we don't have to go compete against anybody else. I'm like, I could do that because in my mind, it's like, well, I'm going to get this transaction.
Right.
There's no guarantee we're going to go find another place. But in my heart, I was like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do that. That's just, you know, and we ended up finding a better place for them.
Yeah.
You know.
And you always do. Like, we always do in real estate where, like, you look at a space and you're like, yeah, I like it. And you're trying to convince yourself into it.
Yeah.
You always end up, if you wait, just like a little bit, don't wait years.
Yeah.
But just wait a week, 2 weeks, and boom, like that next level place will come to you.
Oh, and that's something I talked to my buyers while we're going through this. It's like, look, do you really like, I'm like, we can pull out. Let's, you know, if you're not loving it or don't envision yourself, let's go find another place. Let's get something you're happy with. Not something, whatever. Like, and I know I brought up the thing about one bathroom. Like, honestly, that's just a compromise. It's like, well, Ocean View, that's a compromise. You're not going to have it, you know. But when you're just like, oh, I don't really like it, whatever, that's not a reason to buy, to push through. It's just, hey, you got to have your reasons and priorities. And there's, as long as you're realistic, then that's where we fall through. Because I will say, look, here are the buckets that we've gone through. Yes, you don't have this, that, and the other, but not everybody gets what they want, and it's got most of the stuff that you want.
Right.
You know, you got to kind of keep a bigger picture as far as that goes.
So what is selling right now? Like, we're in this like crazy market, crazy
Turnkey.
rates. Okay.
Turnkey homes that are already walking in, those sell very quickly. You know, buyers will pay for it. It's because it's easy. They walk in. You know, ones that are fixers are, you know, just getting contractors is challenging. You know, going through permits with the city. You go in Manhattan Beach, you're probably looking at 6 to 12 months just to get the permits through. Some cities are easier to deal with than others. So the ones that are selling are the ones that I don't have to deal with the headache. But, you know, we talk about where the economy is, and, you know, we've been saying, oh, the economy's going up. That's really going to be, I think, the mark of when things tend to drop a little bit in regards to, oh boy, the decisions I made to have something that was turnkey versus maybe something that was more of a cosmetic fixer that I can afford. I mean, it's that's where I see things kind of sliding a little bit, correcting.
And is there in real estate, for the people who are listening to this, you have fixer is a situation that's like not ready to live in. You have to cosmetically fix it. Turnkey is like, all I need to do is bring my furniture and it's ready to go.
Right.
Is there another term in there for people who might be listening to this thinking, I didn't necessarily know what kind of real estate I might be looking for, but now after listening to this, like I have more interest, I want to start searching, I want to start looking. Is there a middle ground between those two, or is that it?
A fixer typically is like just...
Can't live there. It's crappy.
Well,
like anybody who lives there.
Can be there's different levels.
Yeah,
like when
it's
you walk
outdated and like
totally outdated or whatever. How like I got to knock walls down. I got to add on, potentially or whatever. I mean, some are simply hideous. If you walked in, and oh my God, that is like the serious of fixers. Right. But most are probably cosmetic fixers, which are, okay, I don't like the cabinets. Okay, we'll replace cabinets. I don't like the countertops. All right, we'll put new countertops in. I don't have to go through and do new electrical or knock walls down internally, which sometimes even knocking a wall down is not even that big of a deal because it could be not a load-bearing wall, which, by the way, is important because that increases the cost of fixing it because you got to make sure load-bearing walls are supported because otherwise you could have some problems later on down the line as far as it caving in on you. Right. But yeah, so the people that are kind of more in that, it would be more that cosmetic fixer. Maybe the bedrooms are a little smaller than what you like, or the closets aren't as big. But there's things you can do like adding more closet space, and there's a lot of vendors that are out there that can enhance your home like in simpler ways. Yeah. Whether it's fixing up a bathroom. I just went through my own remodel. And we were trying to figure out, well, should we do, the way we had it before? Well, we thought modular was actually better just because we're like, we're probably going to live in it for the next 5-10 years. Let's enjoy it. But, styles change. So if it's modular, the next person comes in, they can just pull it out and put in their own things. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think the cosmetic fixers, the ones that you just, are doing more, cabinetry and things of that nature, those are probably a greater value, from that standpoint, because there's certain things without necessarily having to add on as far as that goes.
Okay. All right, help us understand, what is Prop 19?
So Prop 19 is actually a really important proposition that passed that there's two sides of Prop 19. First, from a seller's perspective, when you're over the age of 55, it used to be where you can downsize your home. Let's just say you have a 2,000 square foot home, and it's 2 stories, and the kids have moved out, and it's just you and your partner, or maybe yourself, or whatever. You used to be able to just buy another property that was about the same price, like plus or minus 5%, or you could downsize tremendously as far, and you could keep your property tax and switch it over to certain counties in Los Angeles or in California. Not every county participated. I think we have like 58 counties and 19 counties participated. Mm-hmm. So you can only do that once after the age of 55. So what Prop 19 did was now you can move anywhere you want within California. So it's all the counties. You have to be at least 55 years old. You can take your property tax. So if you've been living in the place for 30 years, your property tax is probably pretty low. Good, yeah. Hell, living in it for 15, 20 years, your property tax is probably decent. And you can shift it to the next property, and you can do it up to 3 times. Now, and again, talk to your CPA. I'm only a real estate agent. That's my CYA. But generally speaking, so with Prop 19, let's say you had a home and it was $1 million, okay? And you want to move, but you want to move to a house that's, or condo or whatever, it's $1.5 million. So let's say your property tax at the time where you're living is $4,000, okay? So with Prop 19, you can move, again, you have to be over the age of 55, move over to this other property that's $1.5 million. Okay. You get your 4,000 basis, but then it's the $500,000 additional goes at whatever the rate is. So at 1.25, you're paying an additional, call it $6,000, $7,000. So now you're paying in property tax $10,000 versus your $4,000. Okay. Let's say you're below the age of 55 and you make the same move. You're paying at 1.5 million that 1.25. So now you're at closer to 18, 19,000.
Right.
So there's a real benefit there from that standpoint. Now, if you go lower, then you can evaluate, like, let's just say that $1 million home. Maybe you bought a $900,000 home, and you're only paying $4,000. Well, you probably want to keep that $4,000 because at $900,000, it's closer to $11,000 in property tax.
Right.
So it makes sense on that end. So it allows, and again, these are kind of like, you're seeing all the legislation in California, all designed about kind of moving homes and opening things up. So that was one thing. Now, the backside of Prop 19, which a lot of people are not thrilled about, is when they pass it along to their heirs. So, part of estate planning, which again, these are conversations I have with people on the street about trust and whether they have one, not just a will, but a trust, where they can design who they want.
Beneficiary,
Exactly, without having to get tied up in court. But so what happens is, say your parent passes and you have two siblings, and the home is worth $2 million, okay? You have three options now under Prop 19. First one, which has always been the case, you could sell the home and you're going to get your, which again, talk to your CPA, but you're going to get your step-up basis in tax. So if it's $2 million, and the step-up basis would be at $2 million basically on what you get, not what they originally bought it at, which would be, let's say it was $100,000. You wouldn't be paying capital gains on 1.9 million.
Right.
Okay, so that's always been the case. Now what's changed is, say the son wants to move into the house. Well, that's fine, but they're gonna base it on what the cost basis of what they bought it at, and whatever they put into the home, you can add that in. But let's just say, for easy measurement, say it was $400,000, and now it's worth $2 million. Well, the son gets $1 million advance on top of that $400,000. So now the house is at 1.4. He's paying the property taxes again at $4,000, but you have a $600,000 divide. Now they have to pay 1.25. Again, you could, whatever the tax rate is, it's somewhere between 1 and 1.25. They'll pay $600,000 on 1.25.
Okay.
So you're at another $8,000 on top of it for a property tax. So that's
4 plus 8 is 12.
Sure, $12,000. Still not bad if you think about $2 million. It's $24,000 just on it. That's where we get into the third option. Well, I want to rent the place, which is what everybody did, or a lot of people did. That said, you know what, I can make a pretty good cash flow, so on and so forth. But it was kind of designed by the state of California to loosen up the housing inventory. So this is where people don't like Prop 19. Is if somebody wants to rent the home, what's going to happen is your whole property tax, you get a year to figure out whether you're going to sell it, move into it, or rent it. But once once you rent it, then the property tax is going to get reassessed at that $2 million. So that's a $24,000. Yeah. So if I'm like, well, the house is kind of, maybe the house isn't in the best shape. Who knows? Or you can only rent it for, say, $5,000 a month.
Right.
All right. Well, if I got to pay $2,000,
24,
I'm paying $2,000 a month. I'm going to get $3,000 plus whatever I got to do to keep it up and vacancy rate. Most people are going to be like, oh, that ain't really worth it,
right?
And so they sell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of Prop 19. It's super important, especially for estate planning, because there's a lot of people who don't know about Prop 19.
Right.
Especially older people, they think, oh, my child's I want to have this for my kids so they can come back. Well, guess what? Your kid's in college, they could get married, they could live out in that area. There's no guarantee they're coming back. And by the way, the ones that do want to come back, they're kind of getting priced out of the market.
Yeah, and it's got to be in a trust. Like if there's somebody who's thinks they're gonna die, like to not have to pay the capital gains tax on that new money, like it has to be in a trust as opposed to just like adding the new person's name.
Well, and again, this gets a little bit challenging in regards to if you put somebody in the trust, you're kicking the can down the road for the next person, because they're gonna. And I don't even know if you can do that. Again, this is more, kind of gets a little bit higher level with the CPA and what have you, but it's not. There's no dodging things. There's going to be a payment at some point.
Yeah. So
this is the kind of thing that you go, okay, well, there was a point in time where people were rushing to put their kids into their trust. to put it under their name so they can avoid that. But there's going to be a point where that does get sold. Now that window has closed, and you can't just go down the road of, well, there's going to be capital gains if they do sell.
Yeah.
And, again, the bigger thing is, are they going to come back? Their life might be somewhere else. It just, there's a lot of things to consider.
It's nuanced.
Yeah, it's completely nuanced, and you just gotta have those tough conversations. And I've had those with people on the street, people in my farm, of just, because I don't have a problem having the conversation, even though it's really sensitive.
Right.
I'm like, I talk about this with my folks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the one thing people do not want is the government to take their money unwillingly.
Right.
So when I talk to them about trust and having something, and they're, I'll get to it. It's like, look, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, or you had a major heart attack and died, I'm like, you realize the government's going to be putting this into probate. They're going to get at least $50,000 moving forward. I'm like, you want to give more money to the government? Usually that's like the
trigger.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give more money to the government. No, you want to give it to your kids.
Right.
Go get a trust. It probably runs you about $3,000.
Right.
And by the way, if you don't have the money for that, well, guess what? Ask your kids. They're the ones receiving it. And by the way, when you die, you think it's not only just painful emotionally, but then they got to deal with bullshit, like all the things that come with a trust, or not with a trust, and all the probate, and have your assets frozen, and it's just a complete reminder every day about you not being there.
Right.
I'm like, why would you want to do that? And for the kids, trust me, that's $3,000 worth that they have less of a headache to deal with your assets. I'm like, you're doing them a favor. I mean, it's to me, when you don't have a trust, it's mind blowing. And if it's like, I'm not going to spend $3,000, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be, and that's why for the kids, I would be the first one shelling it out.
Yeah.
Because your life's going to be tremendously easier to deal with. You can't do anything about the emotional aspects, but why have that reminder? I don't know, for the next 2-3 years,
right,
dealing with it in courts and I really want it. Never heard one person have a good story about going through probate.
Right.
Never. They always say it's a nightmare.
For sure.
So,
any time away from work, spend time in court will not be missed.
Much less all the other paperwork and all the other things that you think, I should get. No, that's not how it works.
So for you, in closing, what would be your advice to somebody who's trying to figure out how they're going to be able to afford their real estate venture? I want to buy my first house. I want to get out of my current house into something different. I want to become a real estate investor. I want to whatever. How do they afford it?
First and foremost, get pre-approved. Whenever I talk to a buyer, the first question I ask is, hey, are you pre-approved? Because that gives you the budget of what you can afford. So for me, when I ask a buyer, what are you pre-approved at? What's your max? Okay, and then that way I have a guide of what you can do. If they say, I think I could afford this, are you pre-approved? No, but I could easily get approved. It's like, it's not about you easily getting approved. It's about you understanding your budget.
Right.
And so that's the number one thing. Once you know what your budget is, and again, let's just use that $1 million marker. Maybe the monthly net for $1 million is a little more than what you want to spend.
Right. And a lot of people don't know, right? That's what you find. They'll say, well, I can afford a $1 million house because all I have to do is put down this percent now, and then
right,
it's this money. You're like, no. There's these things. There's closing costs that go into it.
Absolutely.
Do you have that, like right now on paper? If we need to shift our offer because we're in battle and another person, can you go up to 30% outside of 20, right? Like, those are the things that I found in my time are like the scale shifter for people who think they have it figured out when they're coming in but haven't really researched it.
Yeah, I guess maybe you brought something up is be humble.
Yeah.
Don't assume you know everything.
Right.
Just listen. Getting pre-approved is something that, and again, I always look through it. I'm like, okay, great, you're pre-approved at $1 million. What's that monthly payment for you? A lot of times they don't know, right, because they don't ask. Because the lender doesn't necessarily want to be forthcoming. Because if they say, and I'm not ripping a lender, but
they want to get the deal.
Like $1 million. Well, okay, when they get in, it's like, well, that's going to run you $8,000. What? $8,000? I don't know if I can afford that. You want to have that conversation because it's also evolving. Interest rates go up and go down. Right. So your $8,000 payment at $1 million, a month before might now be $7,000. Right. I mean, or it could be $9,000. It's okay. Now you know what you have at $1 million. at say we're using an arbitrary number, $8,000. Do you feel comfortable? No, I don't feel comfortable with that. What do you feel comfortable with? 6,000. Okay, and that's going to include your property tax, your insurance. Yeah, I can afford that. Okay, let's see what that is. Then we go back to the lender and say, what is it at 6,000? Then, okay, it's probably closer to 825. All right, so now we're going to look for homes at 825. Right. So therefore, you're setting the expectations already of, okay, this is the area it's going to be.
Looking for, yeah.
Just, you don't have to, for me, as long as you are ready to learn, willing to do things in regards to getting yourself prepared. I'm not saying, hey, look, just because you're pre-approved, we're buying this house or we're forcing it. It's be prepared to be prepared. Right. And that's the biggest thing, because when you do walk into that place, you go, oh my God, this is a steal. Or, Doug, you just showed me an off-market property that hasn't gone to market and we can get it right now. Or maybe we get it before the open house. If you're not pre-approved and not ready to go and not mentally knowing what you want to spend, you're going to miss out on that.
For sure.
So just be ready. And when you're ready, we pull the trigger. Until then, you know what? We'll keep looking and make it, have as much fun as we can doing it through the process. And that's what it's about.
Okay. All right. So if people want to find you after this, like they want to get in touch, they want you to be their real estate agent, they want to email you and ask you questions, like how do they get in touch with you?
Well, you can get through to me with my email address, which is doug.edward.christensen@gmail.com. My cell number is 310-809. Oh my God, I'm trying to, I don't even go on it. What sounds it? How terrible is that?
We'll figure it out right now. We'll figure
Let's
it out.
do that. Hold on. The one question, 310-809-1762.
Yep.
Okay.
1762.
God, how terrible is that?
809-1762.
Yeah. I always like to wait for the
age. It's the new age.
Look, I wait for the brain cramp to happen and right at the most important time, how to get in contact with me. So anyways, 310-809-1762. Anyhow, that's probably the easiest way. And if anything, call Chris and he'll get it. Yeah, exactly. So,
very good. All right, I appreciate you being here today.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys next time.